Hello everyone, welcome back. So today I wanted to talk about the 5 things that I wish I would have known before becoming a witch. So number 1, there is no need to rush through the checklist that inevitably you're gonna feel like is there. Pretty much whatever path you're on, it's gonna feel like you have a checklist of stuff that you need to know. What's your favorite crystal? What's your favorite herb? What's your favorite magical tool? Are you more of you want to make incenses and do magic that way? Do you want to do the essential oil sprays? Do you want to use candles more? What's your magical thing that you like to do the most? What's your deities? What's your spirit animal? What's your favorite holiday? What's your favorite element? What element are you most connected to? There's so many on these various checklists that inevitably beginners feel like they have to have. And some of those are real, certain traditions, you do have a ladder that you're kind of climbing up as you're learning. But for the most part, it's not like a checklist, you just kind of create one in your own mind. And I wish I just could have really convinced myself that I didn't need to worry about that things will come with time. I don't know that teenage me would have really listened to that, but I wish I could have gone back in time and just sat little teenage rebel me down and been like, listen honey, the checklist is a lie. Point number 2, you don't have to be an expert at everything. It felt like being a beginner in certain areas, especially as I had started to practice for a few years, it felt like it was an insult to be a beginner at something. Because, oh, if you've practiced for this many years, then you should be an expert in everything. And I've slowly accepted that it's okay to be a beginner in some areas and advanced in others. For example, with the runes and the Norse and all of that, I am in the beginner category. I don't know a lot at all, actually. I'm still learning, and I'm fine admitting that now. But as a beginner, I felt like I had to know all of the correspondences. I had to know the Wheel of the Year. I had to know the elements. I had to know how to read tarot. I had to know how to do this. I had to do that. And it got to a point where I just realized that I can't do that. So I just wouldn't do the things I didn't know how to do. And I was still a beginner at, because I just felt like I can't claim I'm an expert, so I can't talk about it. I'm a beginner at those things, and that's okay. It's not an insult that I think a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people I think will find themselves in at some point over the first 10 years of practicing. Which kind of going along with that is you don't have to be invested into every aspect of the craft. So when I first began, it felt like you had to do everything. You had to do the runes, you had to do tarot, you had to do oracle, you had to do crystals, you had to do herbs, you had to be a kitchen witch, but you also had to be able to connect with your local land spirits and the local deities of your land, which is really interesting when you live in America, because a lot of that's close practices, and then it brings up your ancestry, and if you've had adoptions in your family, which trail do you follow? It gets real complicated fast. I like to have a little bit of a garden, but I wouldn't say I'm a garden or a green witch. It's not a huge part of my practice. And that's come with time. And I make sure to make it very limited on it. I pick 2 or 3 plants that I'm going to actively work with. That's it. And they're still growing, and it's fine, but I'm not gonna really expand it. Well, actually, I have maybe 5 that I use total. And those are my main go-tos when I'm wanting to wildcraft and stuff, and I'm growing it in my yard, or I can go find it out in nature out here. But other than that, for the majority of the herbs and stuff, I'm just gonna go to the grocery store and buy it. Make my life easy. It doesn't need to be complicated. I don't need to grow every single thing in my garden. Same with I don't really do crystal grids, but a lot of witches love those and feel like you need to, and it's you don't have to, honey. It's okay. You don't need to. And you don't have to memorize every single myth that's out there. You don't have to be an expert at everything. And for some people, mythology is really important, but you don't have to be as heavily invested if you don't want to. Again, I had this complex of you had to know everything, and I'm slowly accepting you don't. Point number 4, and it depends on what areas of the community you're in, but the idea that handmade tools are the only way to go, nope. Store-bought is perfectly acceptable. Everyone knows that scene from Roseanne where it's you can just, store-bought's fine for Double Trouble Boil and Bubble or something like that. Really, going to a store and buying your tools is perfectly fine. Not everyone is able to make their own tools, nor does everyone want to. And you shouldn't feel ashamed that you don't. And lastly, correspondences aren't law. It's up for interpretation of whatever it means to you. Now, I will say certain things, it does matter, especially when you're ingesting certain things, recently had the unfortunate knowledge that you should definitely be very cautious when drinking cherry juice. So if you're curious, I highly recommend you Google it. I fucked up, is what I'm saying. And to the point that I want to start a herbal grimoire, book shadows, whatever, journal of stuff you probably should know. Because it's so bad. It's the same as cinnamon tea, if you know that one. But yeah, other than like that kind of stuff where you're like, damn it. Other than that, on a magical front, whatever works for you, and that's okay. For me, you know, like I could look at like sagebrush and some people would say that that's like a purifying and like, I don't know, used to like banish things out of your house or something. For me, that's more for comfort and home and security, because that is a plant I've grown up with my whole life, and I have a very different experience with it than reading it in a textbook. Or you might look at roses and you don't see them as symbols of love, even though they're used often for that. You see them as the flowers that are placed on graves, and that they're placed on the coffins before they're, you know, lowered into the ground. And so for you, they have like a death symbolism versus a love symbolism, and for you, love is like lilies or something. Everyone's gonna have different associations, right down to even colors. What colors mean to you are gonna be different from somebody else, and you don't have to follow it by the textbook. It's good to know what's the common, but you don't have to continue to follow it if that doesn't fit in for you. But yeah, those are my 5 things that I wish I would have known or been able to tell myself as I was just starting off as being a witch. So I would love to hear what your 5 are. Of course, this is like a list that you could go into a lot more detail of, but this was just like my like kind of major 5 that I could think of. So I would love to hear yours in the comments down below. Make sure to like and subscribe because I do post every single day. Thank you to my patrons. I will have their names over here. If you'd like to get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.